Hi, I'm Araksya Karapetyan with KTTV Fox 11's Good Day LA. I'm one of NWCAVE's co-founding advisors and media ambassador. Thank you for tuning in to this year's No More Summit. It has been a difficult time for many as we faced a second year of pandemic restrictions and fears. But despite many businesses being shut down, the violence never stopped. In fact, it raised another barrier for survivors to seek help. Home is not a safe place for everyone. Today, we are bringing attention to the shadow of the pandemic by discussing issues of sexual assault, bullying, identity, and healing. We are shining a light into the darkness and saying no more to violence. Let's begin with Grammy-nominated artist Mary Lambert. Enjoy.
Yes, we're here at the No More Summit. This is the anti-violence conference, and it is, what a time to be alive and to be talking about this stuff. I am really honored to be a spokesperson for NWCAVE, and I feel like I've been able to do so much with my music in being vulnerable and in talking about, my experience through things, but it's been so inspiring and empowering also to be a spokesperson and talk about what's going on. And so I'm very excited to be here.
I'm Michelle Bart. I'm the president and co-founder of the National Women's Coalition Against Violence and Exploitation, other known as NWCAVE. We began NWCAVE, it was a dream. We had a dream, a world without violence. And a group of us decided that our continuation of doing conferences against trafficking and working so hard on building shelters or funding shelters for human trafficking victims, we would hopefully be able to be more of a benefit by slowing the incidences of trafficking down by forming an anti-violence organization. In 2012, that's what we decided to do. We decided to focus on all genres of violence in order to hopefully bring more awareness, information to the public, and in the same breath, preventing different forms of violence from happening in our society. Our conferences against trafficking had always been held during Martin Luther King weekend in January. And Dr. King had a dream. And we even at one point approached Bernice King if it was okay to paraphrase her father's speech, that he had a dream, we have a dream, a world without violence. And so back then, years ago, our focus on the conferences were looking beneath the surface, not in my backyard, and most importantly, we wanted a world without modern-day slavery. And so today, we continue that slogan that we have a dream, a world without violence. And if we can slow violence and prevent violence, human trafficking and modern-day slavery and exploitation would not be a factor. And so over 10 years later, we're still using that slogan, and we believe in it just as much today as we did when it was created.
My mother found a rabid dog and wanted to hug it, wanted to give it all of her glorious honey love, wanted to bathe her children in a two-parent household. But the dog didn't want kids. The dog would scream it in the hallway at 4 a.m., reminding us as often as possible Maybe being unwanted makes you stronger, I thought as a 7-year-old. The sheer art of it. How the monster could panic into my body. The way some paintings stay with you long after you see them. I am a museum. I must be a museum. The teachers at the daycare offered apology eyes and extra sequins for the art project the day after the dog chased me around each room because I forgot where my other shoe was. When you are a child and your mind is panicked like a fire alarm at all times, you lose the ability to remember simple things. I haven't lost a personal item in months. Do not laugh when I say this is a victory. Shame is an ocean I swim across. Sometimes I call it drowning. Sometimes I call it Moses. Sometimes I say good morning and sway to its murky dirge. Sometimes I'll win and cut off its crest with a pink machete. Sometimes I want to screw it and marry it and kill it all at the same time. Sometimes I spend my whole day apologizing on shame's behalf. Sometimes I think it must be an art form to feel this bad. Sometimes I repeat the language from my child mouth while beating my head against a wall, but all the time, I am forgiven. I should not have to be forgiven. All of the time I forgive. I should not have to forgive. When does it end? The grieving part. I was 6, you were 9, we had nothing to laugh about. So I took my books. I wanted life in the pages. I was lost, I was sad, I had nothing to live for. But see, it's not so bad when you're laughing. It's not so bad when you're smiling. Sister, forgetting how it was. And maybe that's a blessing. I don't know. I drove my car down our old street. We were tired, we were young, but Mama said, babies, hold on. You told your jokes, I sang my sad songs. We were young, but we were strong, and we had miles to go. See, it's not so bad when you're laughing. It's not so bad when you're smiling. See, it's not so bad when you're laughing. It's not so bad when you're smiling. Sister, forgetting how it was. Maybe sea. I'm still smiling. I'm still smiling.
The mission of NWCAVE is very personal to me on so many levels. I'm a rape survivor. I was raped in 1992 in Denver, Colorado by a coworker on Halloween. 1992 on was a nightmare on Halloween. I hated Halloween. And then my niece was born on Halloween, and she's going to be 15 now. And so it takes on a whole new perspective for a holiday that I used to enjoy, and then someone took that away from me. On so many other levels that not too many people have heard about. Now I'm going to get emotional. My grandmother was a victim of financial fraud, and she died poor. And my mom was a survivor of domestic violence, and so many of us in my family have had their ins and outs of different violences. What many people don't know, actually nobody knows, my stepfather was the co-inventor of Cabbage Patch dolls. He took my grandmother's money. He put me in the hospital and abused me when I was a teenager. But the verbal abuse and everything that my sister and I and my mom overcame, sits with me every day when the phone rings at our office, when someone needs help because they're fleeing, because they don't have the funds to get the help that they need. If they need a lawyer, if they need a counselor, if their child goes missing, and especially if the child is a person of color. There's so much discrimination in this world, and discrimination, abuse of any kind, verbal abuse, abuse you can never see, rape, the outside of your scars heal. So nobody knows what any of us are living with, or living from, or running from. And the people that come to us for help, I'm proud of what we've been able to do. But yeah, I have a lot of stories of why I keep pushing.
I think it's critical to support organizations like NWCAVE because they're the people doing the actual work. I come in on this like golden unicorn where I'm like, I'm gay, you're gay, everybody's okay. And like, it sucks to be raped, and like, here, let me be your friend. Like, there are ways that I sort of like come in and just kind of get to perform. And while that's like, it is important work, I'm not trying to diminish the work that I do, but what is important is that there are people on the ground doing it, are actually serving people, are actually helping, facilitating change and caring for others. I think we need each other. I think that's why this partnership is so beautiful, because the message can only do so much. You need work behind it. You need people. And the people at NWCAVE are good people doing that work. So I think it's perfect partnership to have the marriage of those two things. It's like, it's essential. And to know that there are, the social workers working, teachers working right now, people on like first responders, people like working tirelessly to make people's lives better. Like, how can I not be so appreciative of that? And also, organizations like this are a lot of times volunteer-based. People have day jobs and they do this in addition to it. How inspiring is that? When I know everybody's at the end of their, their energy rope and still showing up, wanting to care for one another. That to me is a sign of community and the beauty of humanity. That excites me.
She says I smell like safety and home. I named both of her eyes forever, and please don't go. I could be a morning sunrise all the time, yeah. This could be good, this could be good. I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted to. I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted to. My love, she keeps me warm, she keeps me warm. What's your middle name? Do you hate your job? Do you fall in love too easily? What's your favorite word? Do you like kissing girls? Can I call you baby? She says that people stare 'cause we look so good together. I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted to. I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted to. My love, she keeps me warm, she keeps me warm, she keeps me I'm not crying on Sundays. I'm not crying on Sundays. I'm not crying on Sundays. No. They keep me warm. They keep me warm.
I'm Lisa Brum, and I am a board member for National Women's Coalition Against Violence and Exploitation. The mission of NWCAVE is very near and dear and close to me, mostly because I feel like I'm a very big champion and advocate for women and LGBTQ non-binary. I feel that anyone who is suffering or exploited or had violence against them, and financial violence, abuse can be very much as devastating. I just feel that there's not enough people that want to lend that support, and so to be part of the board is just very, very special to me. My mom was second oldest to 13 children, and I witnessed and heard many of the stories that have occurred throughout my family. I think it touches everyone at some point in their life. And so for me to be able to make some kind of influence or have some kind of assistance and support is just incredible.
Hello, I'm making this video for Michelle Bart of Northwest Cave. I've been working with her regarding my sister Jamie Grissom since probably 20 years ago when my sister's story appeared in the local news and Michelle reached out to me. My sister Jamie Grissom disappeared December 7th, 1971, and approximately 20 years ago when Michelle reached out to me, she created Jamie's very first website, and ever since then Michelle's been of tremendous support. And you know, it's hard with people that have been missing for a long time. You know, newer ones come along and you know, people forget sometimes, but Michelle has never forgotten, and she's always passed out flyers regarding Jamie. She often mentions her in her events. And back in 2009, when the Clark County Sheriffs conducted their first search since the 1970s out there in Doe Valley, Michelle and I went together, and she was a tremendous support for me, or I probably would have been out there alone. And I just can't say enough good things about her. She always is willing to keep Jamie's story out there, and I know what a tremendous support she has been to other families.
One of our programs and services that we've been doing for many years is the Missing Children's Division. The Missing Children's Division started because as a media consultant and publicist in my day job, I was representing some families of missing children, get the word out about their missing children. And I was on a high-profile case across the country, which led more people to contact me. So when NWCAVE started, we were doing so much with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that we decided to start a division, part of NWCAVE. So our model was to focus on preventing and bringing awareness and information to the public, but also being able to work with schools and families and you know, and be able to prevent kids from going missing. But if something happens, then there's a service that we can provide on a local level. NCMEC is in DC. So with NWCAVE being on the West Coast, we were able to begin doing some cases under NWCAVE, and then it just continued to get bigger. Then we established a director of our Missing Children's Division who had a lot of expertise. Our hope is that every child does come home, but we try to tell families one way or another, we hope your children come home. But our goal is that the child comes home, is either rescued or found, you know. And so we've been to a lot of funerals over our years. We've been successful in many cases as well. And whether it's high profile or on a local level, every child deserves to be looked for. We don't take that, oh, they're just a runaway, they're a teenager, you know, they just ran away. We don't take that because every child deserves to be looked for. And if we're not looking for them and their families give up because law enforcement agencies tell them, you know, they'll come home, they're not, you know, they're a runaway, you know, we can't look for them, then ultimately those children are believing that, because if they are with a kidnapper or a trafficker or a custodial parent, then everything that they're telling them about no one caring comes true. So we've been very involved on many cases on the West Coast, but also throughout the United States. And there are many cases keep you up at night. Many cases are just heartbroken. I've seen parents lose their jobs because they took too much time looking for their children. I've seen many families that can't afford to bury their children. For us, every minute is a mile, and if I sleep or our director sleeps 8 hours, 9 hours a day, that's going to be a lot of mileage where, you know, keeping the word out on that missing child matters. It's been one of the most personal programs that we've had. And we continue to do everything that we can. And we're usually brought in by law enforcement. We've been brought in by the media. One of our cases, Cara Nichols, her aunt was friends of a reporter that knew me from a case out of Orlando. And the reporter referred me to the aunt. And then the aunt contacted us about her missing niece out of Denver, Colorado Springs. And we still are on that case. And Cara went missing in 2012. So we don't give up. And every case is different, you know. Every case is going to be different. We continue to do what we can on this program.
Hi, my name is Linda Reed. I'm a nonprofit relationship banking officer for Columbia Bank, and I also serve on the board of the Nonprofit Network of Southwest Washington. I first met Michelle Bart back in about 2016, attending nonprofit educational events and community events. The work that NWCAVE is doing in our community is so valuable, bringing awareness, education, and support to victims of sexual assault and domestic violence. NWCAVE has been a great partner in the community and has several programs, but the one I'm most impressed with is the Dignity Clothing Program. NWCAVE partnered with local police, hospitals, and other nonprofits to pull together a program where there are kits available at the hospital when domestic violence or sexual assault victims end up there and their clothes are taken away for evidence. In 2021, the Nonprofit Network actually awarded NWCAVE the Nonprofit Excellence Award in the field of collaboration for this program. I truly admire and respect the work that NWCAVE does in our community and hope they continue along this path. Thank you.
Our newest program is our Dignity Clothing Program. That was brought to us. A need was warranted in the community, and someone from the Police Activities League, PAL, Jenny Thompson, came to us and said that Vancouver Police, a detective of Vancouver Police, and the Domestic Violence Prosecution Center needed some support on clothing for Peace Health here in Vancouver, Washington. And so what started, all of our programs for the most part have always started as a campaign, but Before long, they become so needed, and so we become very good at them that they become an official program like this has, on collecting clothes and giving them over to the hospital for individuals that are homeless or sexually assaulted in the emergency room. That started March of 2020. And by the end of March, March 23rd, 2020, the governor shut us down for COVID. And it was a program, a campaign at the time that we could have easily have quit. We didn't have the volunteers to help. Everyone was closed down. But people that needed those clothing items, rape victims, homeless, etc., COVID didn't stop them from still being victimized and needing clothing. And so we didn't stop. And I'm proud that that program has recently won an award for a collaboration award. We now provide the clothing to not only sexual assault victims that come through the ER, but also the homeless, as well as folks that had COVID that couldn't go home in the clothes that they came with. We have supported, because we've had such an abundance of clothing items donated from our partners at Walmart, the FBI in Portland, etc. The clothing now benefits, it's gone through so many different agencies like the YWCA, Clark County, to Council for the Homeless, to SHARE, as well as the Children's Justice Center, and so many others. And it was a complement to our existing program that you'll hear about later, Gift of Lift. And so, you know, it's a great program, and until people don't need clothing. And I may add, the clothing last year also helped a couple of families that were impacted by the fires as well. So where the need is, we'll provide the items too, and they're new and gently used clothing items. So
I am Robin Helm, and I am the co-founder and program coordinator for the Gift of Lift program, which is part of the National Women's Coalition Against Violence and Exploitation. I want to talk a little bit about the impact the Gift of Lift has had. We have distributed over 25,000 bras, and we're collecting more every month. We've distributed to over 50 beneficiary organizations, and the impact has gone to thousands of women, which is really exciting. These agencies work with women who are victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, women who have come out of sex trafficking, women who are living in poverty and trying to bring themselves up, women who have come out of a bad divorce and are struggling to start a new life. All these women are starting again and need a lift, and we're happy to give it to them. Bras are very expensive items, and they're also a very important garment to a woman as far as how we feel and how we look. And so being able to have a nice bra is very important. The women who give the bras, when they share a bra that they've worn close to their heart and offer it to another woman, they're offering the gift of hope. And that's really cool. And this giving and sharing of bras creates a community of women that have understanding and compassion. And we have a lot of fun with the bras. There's something about sitting down in a living room and counting hundreds of bras that really is a very fun time together. And so we've had a lot of fun together doing this. I'd like to tell a story about a young girl that we provided some bras for. I got a call from one of the high school resource centers. And they were working with a girl who was a large size and lived in high poverty. And she had never, ever had a bra that fit her. All they could afford were stretchy sports bras that were uncomfortable and didn't do anything for her esteem. And so I was asked, did we have any bras that size? And we did. And I was happy to put together a handful of bras for her in fun colors and patterns, things that a high school girl would really like, because a bra is a very important garment to a girl in high school. And I delivered them. And the next day I got a call from the Resource Center. And they said that they brought the girl down and gave her the bras. And she held them in their hands. She held them in her hands and fell to her knees and cried, because she had never been given anything so amazing in her life. And that's why we do it.
Sexual violence and the exploitation of women, like all of this is incredibly important to me, because I mean, not only am I someone who's experienced pretty serious trauma and sexual violence myself, I also have seen its effect on humanity. I've seen its effect on people that I love, people that I don't even know. It's so rampant, and I think it's just become so much a part of our culture that we just kind of accept it, and there are, the repercussions and the accountability really isn't there the way that it ought to be for people that are harmed. So this is like an opportunity to say, no, I want to be on the right side of this. I want to be a force of good in the world, where it's not just about making music or making something that's entertaining. I want someone to feel something. And if anything, I might not be able to create accountability for people who cause harm, but if I can be a voice or a hand or a face on the other end that says, I see you, you're okay, there are a lot of us, that community, I think, is what saves us and what makes us feel a sense of purpose and safety. We survive because of community, and I think it's a summit like this that really brings people together even in crisis, even in pain. Here's this line, here's this, this thread of care, and that's why I love, NWCAVE and Washington Says No More. It's just such an honor to be a part of it. I've been talking about my trauma for many years. I learned from a really early age that there is real power in being vulnerable, and that power is that connectivity that you find with other people. When I am vulnerable and talk about things that have happened to me, I see it as this direct invitation for others to feel open to talking about what happened to them. When we don't talk about it, it's cyclical. When we don't talk about it, it creates shame. I want my work to be something that helps to eliminate shame. The song that I'm most known for, Being Same Love, was a collaboration rooted in this idea that, like, how do we get people to come to the table that may not believe that, gay people deserve rights? And my answer to that question was always show up with heart, show up with love, try to make myself vulnerable so you can see my heart, so you can know that someone like me, I'm worthy of love, I'm worthy of, legal protections as well, right? I wanted that to be really clear. When I saw that work, when I saw the popularity and success of Same Love, that really informed my ideology around what kind of music I wanted to make. So I thought about, how could that be how can I take this, this message and this arc of speaking one's truth into other avenues? I started thinking about being abused as a child. I started thinking about the violence I experienced growing up and how many people don't really know where to put that for themselves. They don't know what to do with it. Talk therapy is great if you can afford therapy, if you can go to therapy, if you have time for therapy, if you believe in therapy, it's awesome. But not everybody has that ability and access to resources. So what can I do with pop music that tells people that they're okay? I wanted to do something subversive with my work so that it would be enjoyable to listen to, but also that you knew you weren't alone when you listened to it. And there are some songs that I write that are more explicitly about, specific things, whether it is about child abuse, whether it is about sexual assault. I have, my whole last record, Grief Creature, is about all of those things. So I have a specific poem about sexual assault, and poems about being bipolar, and all the things that I've sort of experienced. I want people to know that there's that you can live a full, vibrant life even if painful things have happened to you, even if you have been a victim of sexual assault or child abuse or deal with mental issues.
I've got bipolar disorder, my shit's not in order. I'm overweight, I'm always late, I've got too many things to say. I rock mom jeans, cat earrings, extrapolate my feelings. My family is dysfunctional, but we have a good time killing each other. They tell us from the time we're young to hide the things that we don't like about ourselves, inside ourselves. I know I'm not the only one who spent so long attempting to be someone else. Well, I'm over it. I don't care if the world knows what my secrets are. Secrets are. I don't care if the world knows what my secrets are. Secrets are. So what? So what? So what? I can't think straight, I'm so gay. Sometimes I cry a whole day. I care a lot, use an analog clock and never know when to stop. And I'm passive, aggressive. I'm scared of the dark and the dentist. I love my butt and won't shut up. And I never really grew up. They tell us from the time we're young to hide the things that we don't like about ourselves, inside ourselves. I know I'm not the only one who spent so long attempting to be someone else. Well, I'm over it. I don't care if the
A little roller coaster.
As an educator, your hope is for your students to find purpose and meaning and to demonstrate empathy. I truly believe that Michelle Bart has given our students at WSU the opportunity to not only experience what it means to be impactful and empathetic, but to discover that the learnings in the classroom can help move the needle to make this a safer, better place to live. And for that, I'm forever grateful for this partnership. We do see our students being purposeful with their degrees, and I think it's because of examples set by organizations like NWCAVE.
Hi, I'm Katie Yates, and I am the campaign director for Washington Says No More. Washington Says No More began in 2017 when NWCAVE partnered with Washington State University, Vancouver to create the campaign with a mission to bring awareness and prevention of domestic violence and sexual assault in the state. We launched the campaign March 9th, 2018 in Vancouver, Washington. Then we hosted the Anti-Violence Conference in 2019. And from there, we've grown exponentially with our coffee sleeve campaign with a mission to get in the hands of the community in those coffee shops to bring awareness and direction of resources. We've also continued to partner with other organizations for webinars that educate the public. And when the pandemic happened, we made those webinars a huge mission to get in the homes of those who don't feel safe and can't leave their home to get those resources. Washington Says No More campaign continues to grow where we see a need and where the people ask. Along with this, we continue to work with legislators and representatives to end the rape kit backlog in Washington State. Domestic violence and sexual assault affects all of us. Together, we can say no more to domestic violence and sexual assault.
Hello, I am Pamela Sabala, the No More Foundation's Chief Executive Director, and I'm so pleased to participate in this important anniversary. This month marks 4 years since the launch of one of No More's strongest local chapters, Washington Says No More. Since its powerful launch event during No More Week 2018, Washington Says No More has played a critical role in the mission, vision, and success of our organization. Crafted under the National Women's Coalition Against Violence and Exploitation, in partnership with Washington State University and Vancouver students, Washington Says No More perfectly exemplifies the purpose of No More Locals chapters, to engage communities in critical conversations and actions against domestic and sexual violence. In just a few years, Washington Says No More has raised awareness for these issues with their creative coffee sleeve campaign, also by taking meaningful action to eliminate Washington's state rape kit backlog, and has convened leaders from around the state for the No More Summit. We are proud to call the dedicated individuals at Washington Says No More our partners and friends. Every day, their tireless efforts bring us closer to achieving No More's global mission, to eliminate domestic and sexual violence once and for all.
Washington Says No More is something I wish I knew about or that it existed when I was 16. When I was 16, I snuck into an army barracks with my friend who was dating a man at Fort Lewis, and they sort of disappeared, and I was left in an army barracks, and I was raped by some men in at Fort Lewis. And when you are that age, when you're at any age really, you try to make sense of things. So there was a lot that I told myself that I did wrong. There was a way that I felt like I I said, you know, I put myself in this really dangerous situation. Whose fault is that? Of course I got what's coming to me. You know, of course I dressed a certain way. Of course, you know, that's sort of what happens when you're a victim is you think about all the things that you did wrong that got you to that point without thinking about, like, somebody else made choices here. And if I am radically empathetic, which I think I am, I can't really empathize with those choices that were made by men like that at that time. So I think about organizations like Washington Says No More and NWCAVE, and I think about how important it is to empower victims, to remind us that we are not the sum of what has happened to us, that we're so much more than that, but also I wish I knew that it was okay to hold people accountable. I wish I knew that it was okay to tell. I didn't say anything until I was 22 years old. I wish I had known earlier. And I think with that arm of education, with that arm of, you know, the backlog of rape kits, like this is the opportunity to say you can hold people accountable. You can and you should. And there are organizations that want to help that, you know? I think because there wasn't a gun to my head when I was assaulted, I didn't believe that I was assaulted. I believed that sexual assault was reserved for, I don't know, some very specific kind of assault. We have these ideas about what things should look like. And if we don't fit into those things, we feel like we can't possibly take that word or take that moment, like we're taking it away from something. You're not taking it away from anything. You're just speaking honestly about what happened to you. And I think there's a real freedom in being able to speak openly about what happened to you. I'm really glad that at 22 I figured out what happened to me and I was fair to myself. It's also about forgiveness. You don't have to forgive the other person, but you can forgive yourself, right? For feeling like you were to blame or something. It was never your fault. That's like the most powerful thing for me as a survivor has been the ability to create art. When I've been able to create art, I've been able to shape a narrative that makes sense to me. We have to make it make sense. And creating something is sometimes the best way to do it. I also want to say, like, I want survivors to know they're not alone, but I also know that's not a very comforting thing. In some ways, when we realize how many people have been harmed and how many people have been assaulted, it can feel really chilling, and it can also feel like there's an absence of trust, that it's difficult to trust people or know where the good people are. The world is so much more nuanced and complex, and there's a real need for care. I think that most people would benefit from therapy, but when I think about most people benefiting from therapy, if that's the truth, then maybe there's an issue there. Then maybe there's an issue with the culture or the systems. If we all need therapy, then maybe something's wrong with the way things are set up. Then maybe there's some sort of issue in the culture that we can sort of address. Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to ever feel like we had to bottle something up or not believe ourselves? What if we learned that early on and knew when something wrong happened so we could talk about it and not be put in that position? When I talk about what happened to me, I'm not expecting a specific response from others. What I want is I want to be believed. I want to be validated and acknowledged. When I shared about my assault at Fort Lewis, I did a video for Cosmo, actually, and it was, the comments that I got underneath it said, there's no way that could have happened. Those barracks are ironclad. There's no way you could have gotten in, or that would have never happened to you, or, you know, why would you put yourself in that position? Those are all thoughts that kept me from saying it for so long. And all you really want in that moment is to be believed. Because I think with sexual assault, sometimes you don't feel safe talking to the person that did it to you. Like, rarely do you feel safe or okay, or it's safe to talk to that person. So you need to be validated elsewhere. And I couldn't at that time. I couldn't speak up for myself, but now I get to, and I get to hold that boundary and say, no, I deserve to feel validated. This is my experience, and I'm not going to be quiet about it. I don't care if it makes you feel uncomfortable. This is my life, and I didn't want it to happen to me either. I'm sorry if it makes you uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable as well. But I think that's the gift we can give each other, is a gift of listening and caring for each other and validating our own experiences. What you want to respond with, or what you hope on the other end, is empathy. To, like, it might not have happened to you, but if you can empathize with someone else's experience, then that's all you really want. So I think there's so much more good you can do just by listening and saying, I'm sorry that happened to you. You know, that's so powerful, to just have somebody say, I'm sorry that happened to you. I believe you. Like, holy shit. You know, like, that would have been so powerful to me as a 16-year-old.
Remember when we painted the bedroom?
What an incredible experience listening to Mary Lambert perform songs inspired by her own survival, hearing her story in her own words, and learning more about the impact NWCAVE has had in their fight to end violence. To learn more about this nonprofit, please visit nwcave.org. To learn more about the state campaign, Washington Says No More, visit wasaysnomore.org. There are resources for survivors and their supporters on both websites. If you or someone you know is in an abusive relationship, call the confidential National Domestic Violence Hotline. That number is 1-800-799-SAFE 7233, or text START. That's 88788. If you need to talk to someone about a sexual assault, please call the confidential National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-HOPE 4673, or chat online with a trained staff member who can provide confidential crisis support at RAINN.org. That's RAINN.org. Thanks so much for joining us as together we say no more to violence.